Entitled father who abandoned me for his new wife now feels entitled to my inheritance and demanded I give his spoiled kids, who called me a bee, my properties and a job. Then the whole family, including the stepmom, ganged up on me to assault me. So we kicked all their arses, took my scapegoat half-sister from that family, gave the restraining orders, and went NC. Throwaway because I don't want this post on my main account. Some background. My dad and his siblings hated my grandfather with good reason. Growing up, their dad was an abusive alcoholic towards them and my grandmother. When she died, my dad and his siblings all left home when they turned 18 and never returned. Except for my dad, none of them ever spoke to him again. My dad spoke to my grandfather twice after leaving home. I was 8 at my mom's funeral when I first met my grandfather. He approached me, kneeled on the ground in front of me, introduced himself, and asked how I was doing. But before I could say anything, my dad had pulled me away from him. He yelled for a bit, then dragged me away. I was 11 when I met him again. When my dad dropped me off at his house and left me there. I found out a few years later, it was because my dad's new wife didn't want me around. You might think my dad was a boss for doing that. I know I did, but it turned out to be the best thing he could have ever done for me, even if I hated him for it. My grandfather and I became very close. His alcohol-filled days were long behind him, and he taught me everything. He owned a lot of land. A lot of land. He taught me how to grow vegetables, how to farm, how to maintain the property and look after the land, how to care for the animals, how to hunt, and he pushed me to get an education. I was happiest when he and I were working the land together. During all that time out on the land, working on one project or another, he told me of his life and what he had done to his family. He didn't make excuses, didn't try to reason away his behavior. He told me of all the hurt and pain he caused. When I asked why he didn't try to reconcile with his children, he said they can't forget what he put them through. He understood that and accepted it. I was 26 when he died. I called my dad to let him know. I had to tell him who I was. He didn't stay on the line long. He told me to take care of the funeral, then hung up. Knowing what I knew of his childhood, I didn't blame him. But he didn't even ask how I was. The resentment I already had for him grew. After the funeral, at the wake, a young woman introduced herself to me. She was my cousin. I knew my dad had siblings, but that's all I knew. I had never met them and didn't know anything about them, so I didn't call any of them to let them know about my grandfather. I asked how she knew, and she told me my dad had called her mom. She spent a few days in town after the funeral, and we kept in touch after. We became and still are really close. A couple of years later, when she said she was moving into town, I gave her an acre of land. Her husband, and their kids still live there today. My grandfather left me everything. My dad, his siblings, none of them contested the will. My cousin told me her mom didn't want anything, not 1 cent, from her father. I guess the rest of them felt that way too, because neither me nor my lawyer ever heard anything from them. Until last week. My dad called me. His son needs a new start. Apparently he's wanting to move my way to help with my businesses. I have a few small businesses I run off my property. A working farm where people can come to stay for a few days to experience farm life. Situated in 3 separate areas of the farm are 3 rustic cabins with bunk beds that I rent out to people wanting a break for a few days in a quiet, peaceful setting. All the cabins sit in their own meadows with plenty of space around them. There are walking tracks through the forest, medium hiking tracks, and riding tracks if they want to hire horses. There's a river close by where my friends and I made a large swimming hole so it would be safe for kids. The local kids take it over every summer. There are spots along the river and a couple of streams that are good for fly fishing. I also have stables that my cousin's husband manages. He leads the horse treks and runs the riding school. He also helps me with people wanting to come in to hunt deer on the property. I have a few money-making ventures. Now my half-brother, whom I've met just one time before I was shipped off to my grandfather, all of a sudden wants to come help me. I have all the help I need. I don't need his. I told my dad I would think about it. He's been sending me text every day, several times a day, asking me about the property and the businesses, suggesting roles his son could fill. Telling me family looks out for each other and sticks together. Telling me my grandfather owes him. Telling me what land I should give his son to set him up. And what land would be best for him and his wife when they visit. Every time I see Dad pop up on my screen, I want to smash my phone. My anger and resentment are directed at my dad, not his son, but I still don't want him here. He's a stranger to me. All my grandfather left me is mine now, and I don't owe any of them anything. My cousin and her husband are on my side and say if it were up to them, They would tell my dad and his son to get lost, because they have never made the effort to be family with me or even call to say hi. I know they're right. What they say is true. Wibta if I say no because of the resentment I have for my dad. Update. Hey Reddit. I've had tons and tons of people asking for an update. It's not a big one. Only a couple of weeks have passed since my original post, but it is a significant update. You'll have to look on my profile for the original post because I don't know how to link it. First, thanks for the support and advice. I read every comment and every DM, even though I did not reply to most of you. I still appreciate that you all took the time to reach out both on the post and in DM. So let me address some of the things raised in the post and in DMs. I don't know why this matters, but yes, I am a woman. Neither my cousin nor my aunt are covert agents sent to spy on me. I am not American. I do not live in America. American laws do not apply in any country but the US. I do not know how my dad got my mobile number. I'm still looking into that. That's all I can remember for the moment. Okay, so when I left off, I was unsure about whether to give my half-brother a job and land. At this point, I have to say that my half-brother was the reason for my post, not my dad. I know my dad is not worth anything. However, my half-brother was an unknown to me. I did not feel right cutting him off based solely on negative emotions I hold for my dad. I'd like to thank those who gave me advice about that particular issue. So, I asked a close friend of mine, a local cop, if he could find out if my dad still lived in the same place. Then I asked how to go about getting a trespass order. That was pretty simple. I walked out of the police station with one in my hand and my dad's address. I then asked another close friend if he would come with me to my dad's house. Because, as far as I knew, that was where my half-brother lived. 2 days after my original post, we set off to see my half-brother. It took us about 10 hours to drive there. I decided to drive instead of fly because I needed that time to order my thoughts. We showed up unannounced. We could hear a woman screaming inside from the curbside. Not screaming like she was in trouble, she was clearly screaming at someone. My friend told me to pull my phone out and start recording. I'm glad he thought of that. Dad answered the door. He thought we were Jehovah's Witnesses, told us to F off, and tried to close the door in our faces. My friend put his hand on the door to stop him. I said, Dad. And he took a second, then a third look. I cannot tell you or explain to you the change that came over him when he realized it was me. His whole demeanor went from who TF are you to dare come to my door to catching. He invited us in, then ran out of sight. The yelling stopped quick smart, and a minute later he came back with his wife. She was all smiles. Big smiles with a big welcoming hug. The smile made my skin crawl, and the hug had me wishing for plenty of soap and hot water. They told us to sit and asked if we wanted anything coffee, Pepsi, juice. I wanted water because my mouth and throat were suddenly dry, but we declined their offer of refreshments. We sat for a few minutes making small talk, and then I asked where my brother was. Dad's wife turned her head and ordered someone standing out of sight to call your brother. Wait. What? Then this someone standing out of sight asked which brother. Wait. What? Which brother? What? I asked. Who is that? Dad said your sister, and his wife said no one. This revelation shook me. I wasn't prepared for more than one brother, and I definitely was not prepared for a sister. My friend could see I was struggling, so he started asking questions about my half-brother. What does he do? Does he live close? Oh, he lives at home. What work experience does he have? Has he worked with beef cows, dairy cows, any farm animals? Does he have any farm experience at all? What kind of work experience does he have? You see, there was a reason I asked this particular friend to accompany me, and a reason he was asking those questions. Less than a half hour later, 2 guys walk in. They were obviously brothers. I did not get good vibes from them at all. The younger one walked around the corner, and we could hear him telling the sister, who we still had not seen, that he was FKN hungry, and to FKN make him something to eat. A sandwich for FK's sake. FKN move her fat arse. And what the FK was that on her FKN face? It made her look FKN uglier. The older one came in and sat next to his mother. He lounged in his seat like it was a throne, and he was the king. Judging by the look on his mother's face, he was raised to believe that. He looked at my friend, dismissed him, then at me and smirked. He said, "So you're the bee that's going to set me up." He stated that it was already a done deal. I said not me. I looked at my friend, and he said no, he's not taking him on. A full 2 or 3 seconds went by before Dad's wife asked what we meant. I told them I had no positions available, and so wasn't taking any new employees. But my friend was looking for farmhands. He then said he was no longer looking here. She then asked, "What about the land?" My friend said the job came with a 2-bedroom cottage at reduced rent, but the role was no longer available. Then everything exploded. There were accusations of lording it over them, being a stuck-up bee, thinking I was better than them, that I owed them, that I was a greedy gold digger, that I was probably spreading my legs for the old man before he died, that they always knew I was defective. My dad's wife tried to attack me, but I held my arm up, caught her face in my hand, and shoved her back. She flipped backwards over the arm of the couch. My dad then tried to attack me, and my friend got between us, gut punched him, and he ended up on the floor. Then my spoiled half-brother tried to defend his dad by attacking my friend and got a punch to the jaw for his effort. He too ended up on the floor. I pulled out the trespass order, dropped it beside my dad, told them what it was, and then we made our way to the door. On our way out, we saw the other brother standing there in shock, but he barely registered. I was too busy staring at my sister. She was beautiful and had scratches on her face and a swollen lip. We were supposed to drive straight home. That was the plan. But I couldn't leave, and my friend wouldn't leave me there alone. We got a hotel and spent a couple of days watching my dad's house. I finally saw my sister leave, and I followed her to the grocery store. I waited outside for her to come out. She freaked when she saw me. She told me I had to leave and go back to my farm, and that her brothers were talking about what they would do to me if they got the chance. I said they didn't worry me. I approached her slowly, like she was one of the rescues in my stables. I spoke calmly, hands at my sides, but in full view, no sudden movements. I spoke to her for several minutes about the property, what we do there, and what we offer. Even as I type this, I imagine I can hear the majority of people from my original post warning me to be careful and not to trust her. She's like the others. But my instincts were telling me different. I asked if she had a phone, then gave her my number, told her she could call me or text me anytime, day or night, and I'd answer. I backed off then. I told her I'd wait for her call. On our long drive home, she texted me and asked if I had any dogs. It's been roughly a week since. She texts me every day, several times a day. She called me at 2 a.m. last night. We talked for an hour about the dogs, and at the end of the call, she told me she will be 18 in May. I get the feeling she wants to ask if she can come here when she can legally leave her parents. I will pick her up myself the day of her birthday if that's what she wants.